You're ready to start looking for homes. What's the process of actually finding the right house and making sure that you can get it? Okay, so if you're watching this video and you've gotten this far, I hope you've watched our first two videos here in terms of finding your motivation for why you want to buy a home and assembling the team around you that will help you buy a home. And if you haven't, then go to one of those. If you're just starting in this home buying process, don't start at this video, go to the first video and talk about and think through your motivation for buying a home. If you've already watched this first video, then go to the second video in terms of finding a team to help you buy a home, finding a realtor, finding a lender. But if you have gone through all of those things and you have your team, then this is the video for you because you're ready to start going to look for homes. And again, this video is for home buyers in 2023 in Kansas City. Since this guide is for 2023 in the KC metro area, so let me tell you my expectations for the certain areas around the metro. Again, if you watched the first video, I did mention the fact that a lot of people think that the housing market is going to completely crash. Now, I don't think so. If you want a housing market update for the first, for January of 2023, then click here. That's going to be linked. But I don't necessarily think the housing market is going to crash. One of the things that my expectations are that depending on where you're looking in the Kansas City metro, there still could be homes that go under market within the first few days. If a home is well priced and it's in a really attractive and desirable area, then it's probably still going to go fast. I just want to get you ready. So that's why you need to be fast. That's why you're watching this video, is because you're trying to make sure that you're in the right frame of mind, you're in the right mentality, you have all the information so that when you see that right home, you can make that great offer and you can go under contract to buy that house. Let's just say that you see a house, whether it's on your realtor search or whether it's on Zillow, that you absolutely love, and you look at it, maybe you're married, you look at it with your wife or your husband, and you're looking at it and you're saying, I love this home, let's go see it. Okay, what's the first step? Is I would schedule a showing with your realtor. So reach out to the realtor that you're working with, that you chose, and say, hey, can we go see this home on 123 Main Street? And what your realtor will typically do is they will send you what's called a seller's disclosure. I put it right here, a seller's disclosure. This is a document that you're going to want to review before you go look at this home. The reason, so here's what a seller's disclosure is. It's a document that every seller has to fill out concerning what they know about the home that they're selling. So it's a document that helps you as the consumer see the condition of the house even before you walk into it. Okay, and it's legally enforceable, so you know sellers are typically not going to lie on these things. The seller has incentive to be truthful. Now, one of the things is to be cautious about this, is that sometimes sellers aren't trying to deceive you or be untruthful. Sometimes they truly don't know a question that is on the seller's disclosure, and they're not trying to pull the wool over your eyes. They're just saying, I actually don't know the answer to this question. Okay, so for example, if we were selling our home today, this home that I'm sitting in right now, we don't know exactly how old our roof is. We would give you an estimate. If you were buying our home, we would give you an estimate on the seller's disclosure. We're not trying to deceive you. We're not trying to fool you. We just don't know. If the seller's disclosure shows you things about the property that you absolutely can't like, for example, if it's on septic and you really don't want septic for some reason, well then you don't need to see that house, right? But if you can either deal with the problems in the seller's disclosure, or maybe the problems are there, but you want to see them in person, then go and see the house. Or if you're trying to negotiate, if you're willing to at least talk to the seller or talk to the seller's agent about negotiating these problems within this deal, then go and see the house. So here are the things to review in the seller's disclosure. Look at the roof, look at the age of the roof, and then notice too how many layers are on the roof. You may not think that's important, but that's actually important for insurance reasons, because some insurance companies want a roof to be only one layer. That's not every insurance company, and again, I want to caveat this with saying that I'm not an insurance agent, so you may want to reach out to an insurance agent and ask them, but most insurance companies I know, they typically like it if the roof is one layer, because it's less heavy, puts less structural strain on the rest of the house. So the foundation. Are there any foundation issues that you need to be aware of? And so here's where it's important to see the house, because the seller may say, yes, we have a crack in the foundation. Well, that crack could be a hairline crack that is not going to pose any problem for the next 10 to 15 years, or it could be a massive fissure that's going to make the house fall down next month. And you really won't know until you go and see the house for yourself. The plumbing. Is the plumbing cast iron? Is it PEX? PEX is newer, and typically they have less problems, so you're going to want to notice things like that. Electrical. Did they do any updates to the electrical system? Pets. If you're allergic to pets, did they own any pets in the house? How old are the different components, the HVAC, the AC? Now, if you don't know what these things are, I'm going to explain them later in the video. Don't worry about that. But that seller's disclosure will help you determine whether or not you're going to go and see that house. The showing. You decide you do want to see the house, and you schedule a showing, and you show up there, and your realtor's there, and your realtor will be with you as you walk through the property. Now, when you're at a showing, there's some helpful questions that you should answer about the property that only you can answer. The first question that I would like you to answer if we go to a showing together is, answer this question. Would I or would we, if you're with a family, would I or would we be happy in this house? Okay, would I or would we be happy in this house? So as you walk through the house, try to envision your life if you live there. Where would you put your couch? Where would you put your TV? Where would you put your bed? Which room would be your kids' room? Which room would be your room? Which room would you have your office? What would you do with the basement? Would it be your man cave? Would it be a little retreat for you and the gals when they come over? So ask, would you be happy there? And if you wouldn't, then you don't need to worry about seeing the rest of the house. You can just leave. So question number 2, is there anything inconvenient about this house? Is there anything inconvenient about this house? For example, our laundry is all the way down in our basement, and we have all our clothes is all the way on the 3rd floor. So living in our house, a lot of the times we have to take all of our laundry all the way downstairs to wash it, and then we have to take it all the way upstairs to put it away. Is that something that you can deal with if you find a house where like ours, the laundry is in the basement and we have a 2-story house? Okay, those are the things that you need to think through. Is it going to be inconvenient living here? What are the logistics of living there? Where would your kids go? Would the rooms be too small for your kids? Would the rooms be too small for you? Are you somebody who likes to spend a lot of time in the master bedroom and therefore you need a larger master bedroom? Or are you somebody who can tolerate smaller bedrooms because you're mostly going to be out in the living room or the family room or in the kitchen, and you're not going to spend that much time in the bedrooms? Another question, the third question that I would ask is it's related to the second. Is there anything inconvenient about the house in a different season? So I don't know when you're watching this video. You might be watching in early 2023, or you're watching later 2023 in the winter when it's cold, or you might be watching this right in the spring or in the summer. Have you thought, if you're walking through a house in the spring, have you thought of that same house in the winter? So we have a detached garage, and we thought we would really like a detached garage, and for the most part, we actually really do. But when it's really cold in the winter, and we have to go all the way out to the detached garage to do something out there, well, it's a lot easier. It would be a lot easier if the garage was attached. But you don't notice those things in the spring when it's beautiful outside, or in the summer when it's hot and you go outside. Is there anything that would be inconvenient about the house in a different season? Are the front steps super steep, and if they were iced over when it's cold, would you be prone to falling? All of those things you want to ask. Is it on such a steep hill that you might be uncomfortable driving there in the winter? So all of those things you need to factor in when you're looking at the house. So ask those questions. And guess what? If you're unsatisfied with the house, we don't have to be there for an hour. It is okay. It is 100% okay to poke your head into a house and say, this is not the house for me, and leave. That's no problem. Again, if you don't know, I work as a local realtor here. I would love to show you houses. I think I pride myself on being extremely patient with people as they see houses, and being a good teacher as I walk you through the house. So if you don't have a realtor here and you're watching this and you're looking to buy a house in 2023 in Kansas City, either on the Kansas or the Missouri side, please give me a call. My phone number is 626-226-6611. Go ahead and send me a text. You can also send me an email. I put my email down below. So there's a whole bunch of ways that you can get a hold of me. So you've answered these questions about the house, and you're still happy with the house. You could envision a life there. You could envision that your family's there. You've kind of made a mental note of all the logistics of living at the house, and you're happy with it. The next thing that you need to do is you need to verify that the seller's disclosure is accurate. Remember that realtors are not inspectors. We're not going to be able to go to the depth of an inspector when we're looking at a house, but we've seen thousands of houses. And we could point out some common issues that you might want to know before you get to that inspection period. Again, like I said, like I promised before, if you don't know the different components and parts of a house, here's a quick rundown. Okay, the roof. The roof is obviously on the top of your house, and the job of the roof is to protect your home from the elements. Okay, mainly water. Typically a roof that has been replaced within the last 10 years, that's a positive sign because roofs typically have a life of anywhere from 10 to 15 years. They can last a long time depending on the elements and depending on different leaves and trees helped erode the roof, or maybe different hailstorms or anything like that. And they can be costly to replace. I would say to replace a roof in Kansas City, you're probably going to pay at least $5,000 and up. But sometimes insurance can help with that. Again, I'm not an insurance agent. I don't want to promise you anything. So you're going to have to ask your insurance agent. So foundation, going from the roof to the bottom of the house to the foundation. So in Kansas City, we have soil that has a very high clay content. And with clay, what happens with it is that it expands and contracts with moisture. And you know, if you live in Kansas City, or if you don't know, in Kansas City, and you're moving to Kansas City, if you don't know and you're moving to Kansas City, there's a lot of moisture here. There's a lot of rain. That means the soil around the foundation of Kansas City houses, both in Kansas and Missouri, are constantly shifting and changing, and so therefore pressure is exerted when there's moisture, and the clay expands, and moisture is really the enemy of foundations. And so you're going to want to ensure that water stays away from your foundation, and the way that a lot of home buyers and home sellers do that, or homeowners, the way that a lot of homeowners do that is they make sure the gutters terminate far away from their house. They make sure that the grading, the way that the dirt is around their house, runs away from the house so that the water runs away from the house. And so when we go through foundations, especially basements, you'll probably notice that in most basements in Kansas City, at least in a lot of them, unless it's a newer basement, that there's a lot of small cracks that start to form, and that is completely normal. Now, what's not normal and what's not good is when that crack gets so big that it can compromise the structural integrity of that foundation, and then that's when you have something like piers or bracing. In our house, in our house in a different part of Kansas City here that we own as a rental, that's exactly what happened to it. We had to, when we bought it back when we moved into it, the sellers had to put piers to make sure that that part of the house was structurally sound, and they also had to install some waterproofing there. And even with that, you can see that there are still cracks in the foundation where, like I said, it's impossible to prevent. So are you comfortable with those things? Are you comfortable with the repairs that could possibly come with them in the future? The way you do that, is with piers, or you could have these anchors that they have here in Kansas City, and those are the ways that foundation companies mitigate those foundation issues. A sump pump. If you don't know what a sump pump is, it's a pump that pumps water away from your foundation and away from your house so that it doesn't just sit there. So as water accumulates underneath your house, a sump pump will kick on to make sure that water is not going to remain right next to your foundation, deteriorating it. But the foundation can be really expensive. Are you comfortable with the potential cost of repairing a foundation in the coming years? Could you budget for a few years to save up to do these updates? Next is the plumbing. So if you like the house, you're going to want to go through and you're going to want to run the sinks for a little bit, and you're going to want to check underneath to see, are they leaking? Are there leaks anywhere throughout the house? Go ahead and run the garbage disposal and check, is that working well? Is that sounding kind of funky? Go into the basement and look at the plumbing stack. Is that plumbing stack cast iron? That means it's a little bit older. Is it PEX? That means it's a little bit newer. What a huge unknown is the sewer line. And we'll get to that part when we talk about inspecting the property, but the sewer line takes all the garbage, all the gray water, all the waste, the fecal matter and stuff like that, and it runs it away from the house. And because, again, it's in the clay soil in Missouri, it's a huge unknown. Okay, so we're gonna talk about that later. The electrical panel. The electricity typically runs through the home, through the wires that are connected to the house, and the meter reads how much electricity the home is getting. You may wonder, well, who's responsible if the meter breaks? Well, you're going to have to ask your service provider. You ask Evergy or ask BPU who's responsible, because they have different policies. Typically, if the meter is damaged, the company will take care of it. But from there on inside, the electrical panel inside, all of that is yours. So is that in good shape? With the electrical panel, it's extremely hard to tell. unless you have the ability to open it up, which typically at showings you don't necessarily do. One thing that you're going to want to notice, especially if you're looking at an older house, is look at the different outlets. Now, usually in most outlets, there's two vertical prongs and then one kind of roundish prong at the bottom. If there's only two vertical prongs, that typically means that the outlets in the house are not grounded. And that's not necessarily something that's like, oh, the house is gonna catch on fire or anything like that, but that's something that you're gonna want to talk to your electrician about, because as time progressed, different codes on how to build houses changed. So when they built that house, they probably didn't need to have grounded outlets, but that means it hasn't been updated since then. And that's going to be something that's going to be costly to update. So talk to an electrician about the risks of not having grounded outlets in the house, and the cost of how much it would cost to make sure that the outlets can be grounded. So another thing you're going to want to do with electrical, take a look at the outlets in the kitchen and in the bathroom. They're supposed to be GFCI outlets. That's ground fault circuit interrupter outlets. And you may see them around the house. You probably have if you live if you've lived anywhere. What they prevent is if there's a surge of electricity, it immediately switches it off in case you dropped something like some kitchen utensil that was plugged into the sink, so that you don't get electrocuted. Those GFCI outlets help protect you. So you're going to want to notice, are those things going to need to be upgraded? Are those things going to need to be updated? Other components. The HVAC, like I said earlier in another video, is the heating, the ventilation, and the air conditioning. That's a big unit that's typically in most basements of houses. Sometimes they're located in crawl spaces. Those last anywhere from 10 to 25 years, depending on how people take care of them. So one of the things that you can do is you can pull out the air filter and take a look. Is this an air filter that has been consistently changed? Because if it's not, then it could shorten the life of the HVAC system. So many times, if you have a realtor with you, they can look up the serial number of the HVAC system, and sometimes they can help you determine the date. The inspector definitely can, but sometimes on showings, I do that for my clients as well, because if the seller doesn't know how old their HVAC system is, it's a simple Google search and you can find out based on the serial number and based on the make of the HVAC system. That HVAC system costs anywhere from $5,000 to $15,000 to replace. And that's a very broad estimate. I'm not an HVAC tech. I'm not an HVAC repairman, so don't quote me on that, but those are expensive to replace. Hot water heaters are also in the basement. You can also look up the age on them, and they typically last anywhere from 10 to 15 years, sometimes longer if they're taken care of well. Those cost anywhere from $1,000 or $2,000 to replace. The air conditioner outside, the air conditioner condenser, can last anywhere from 15 to 20 years. Here's one thing to know about the air conditioner is if you're buying a house in the winter, or if you're buying a house where the temperature outside is lower than 65 degrees, then the inspector cannot turn on that air conditioner, because it could potentially damage the unit, and they would be liable, or you would be liable as the buyer, to buy them a new one. And so if you're buying a house in the winter and you're watching this in early 2023 or late 2023 when it's cold, then the inspector is typically not going to be able to test that HVAC unit. So just be aware of that. Those cost anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000 or more to replace. So again, those are super broad ranges. I'm not a technician. I don't give super accurate quotes. I just know that I've seen repairs ranging in that amount. You made it to the end of this video. What happens if you love the home and you're ready to write an offer, write a contract for it? So click on the next video to find out.